Okay, so we've had a look at how we can make adjustments to our image. Now what we want to do is have a look at how we can make non-destructive adjustments. So we talked a little bit earlier on about destructive and non-destructive. Well, this way, or this technique, is a non-destructive way of processing your file and making adjustments to it. So it's done in a similar way, the same but different. Instead of going up to the top here where we select our image and we go and pick our adjustment, we're not going to do it that way. What we're going to do is all the way down the bottom here we have what's known as our adjustment layers. Okay, so I'm going to move this up so you can see it. Okay, so if I hit that, a drop down menu comes down and we can choose from the same adjustments that we had in the top menu, except that when we click on one of our adjustments here, it comes in as an adjustment layer. Okay, so if we have the layer, the adjustment layer, we also have an adjustment layer mask. And if I just select a few of these and just bring them up. Okay, so here we have three different layer adjustments. Okay, we have brightness and contrast, a curves adjustment, hue and saturation. But of course you can see each one of those has its own layer mask. Okay, now the beauty is, let's make a really quick adjustment to all of these. I'm going to increase the brightness in this one. Let's just make a slight adjustment here. Okay, hue and saturation, let's increase the saturation by quite a bit. And there we go. So obviously that's all overdone, and we've made a global adjustment in each case. So we've affected the whole image with each adjustment. So we've brightened the whole image, we've adjusted the curves in the whole image, and we've saturated the whole image. But we don't necessarily want to do that. Now, I talked earlier on about global changes and also selective changes. So if we want to make a selective adjustment, we need to make a selection. And when I do this, I don't go up to our adjustment tools, so our selective tools. I do it in a different way. So the first thing I do is, we have the three masks for each layer. So what I do is, if I hit Command or Control I, that mask now goes black. So the difference between black and white: white, it means you can see the adjustment, black means you can't see the adjustment. So essentially we're putting, some, a cover over just the adjustment. Okay, so if we click on that one, hit Command Control I, Command or Control I on the next one, all those adjustments we just made have all now disappeared. You can't see them. Okay, we could easily just switch back and forward just by hitting Command and Control I. And you can see. Now another thing we can do, and another great thing about using layered adjustments as opposed to just putting adjustments straight onto your image, we can switch these off at any time. The adjustment is still there, we've just switched it off, we can't see it. We can delete one by one, we can choose which one we want to see, we can just turn this one on. Okay, so it's and we can save this out as a PSD document, a Photoshop document, and we can come back in here in 10 years time, and all of these layers and adjustments will all be here, and they will all be adjustable, and we can manipulate them again. We can turn one off, turn another on, add a new adjustment in here, and so on. So this is why it's non-destructive. We always have our base layer, we always have our manipulated layer where we've maybe done some cloning and so on, dust removal, but we have all of this and all of our layers on top, and that is the beauty of layers instead of just adding your adjustment to the image itself. Okay, so it's a very good way to process your files, so you can always come back to make changes. So let's turn these back on. Okay, and we're going to invert the masks on each of these again, and I'm going to show you how I make my selective adjustments. When I make those adjustments, I always over exaggerate the adjustment just a little bit, because when I make the selection, it's a very slight selection, and let's show you how we do this. So let's say the brightness, didn't want to make a global change. All I want to do is brighten up this little house, this area here, and maybe along the headland. So if I grab my brush tool, which is over here, which is B, And by using the brackets, I can bring that brush down. Now we have opacity and we have flow. I personally prefer to use opacity. I really don't use flow that often. But the difference being opacity, okay, let's just have a look. So if I hit Option or Alt and click on the mask itself, now we can see the actual mask and not the image below it, okay? So just so you can see how this works, if I want to change my opacity to 25%, I can do one of three things. I can just click on and then it gives me a little slider. Yep. Or I can actually click on and highlight the number and change that by typing in the percentage. Or what I can do is I can just hit the number 6 for 60% or 2 for 20%. If I wanted 22%, I would just hit 2 twice, but quickly. Okay, so hit the number 2 and hit a little bit faster, and you'll actually get 22. Flow works the exact same way. 0 is 100 for 100%. But if I want to change flow, I just hit Shift, hold Shift down, and hit the number again. So again, I'm not going to work with flow, but I'll show you the difference between opacity and flow. So if we get our opacity down to say 25%, and if I hold my mouse down, click my mouse on the left button, and I can draw across there. So essentially what this is, if it's black, we can't see the image. If it's white, if it's black, we can't see the adjustment. If it's white, we can. So obviously if we take 24% of the black area away, that means we can see 25% of the adjustment. So we still have 75% black, 25% white. If I go over that again, I'm going to take away 25% from the 75 that was left. Okay, so if we keep doing this, we're taking away 25, 25, 25, and we're going to keep doing that until we get to white. Okay, it's going to take a little while, but that's okay. The difference between this and flow, let's just go back a few spaces. So the difference between, let's get that back. The difference between opacity and flow, let's just get that back. Okay, so with flow, we do one stroke for 25%, but without taking my finger off the mouse and I go back over, it gives me more. So just by continually going over, even with just one stroke, it will continue to take away that 25% every time I go over, as opposed to opacity, it will only give you 25%. No matter how many times you go over, you need to release the mouse and click again for more. Okay, so that's the difference between flow and opacity. Okay, so let's make an adjustment here. So I'm going to walk, and normally I walk in around about 20 to 30% opacity. You'll find what you prefer just by practice and having a look. So I just want to adjust. Remember, we have a black mask, so if we want to reveal the adjustment we've made, we need to be on a white brush. So we've talked about how we change our brush before. You can click X. X will toggle between black and white, or foreground and background. Okay, but we need, if we're on a black mask and we're trying to reveal our adjustment, we're trying to reveal what's behind the mask, we need to be painting it white. If that mask is white and we want to be covering our adjustment, we need to be painting in black. Okay, so this is a very easy mistake for people to make. They're on a black mask and they're trying to paint black over it and they're wondering why it's not working. That's why. Okay, so I'm going to adjust this brush so it suits. I'm going to bring the image up a little bit. So I'm at 20%, so if I go over this area a couple of times, and you can't really see too much happening, okay? And I'm going to go down in this area, and what this is doing is giving the illusion that there's a little bit more sea mist than there is. Okay, so if we just switch the eye here on and off, you can see the adjustment that's been made. Okay, and that's how you make your selective adjustments. Okay, now we can go back down and click on the actual adjustment layer, and we can increase the brightness, and it will show you where the adjustment has been made. Okay, now we might go to, say, our saturation. We might just want to saturate the sky. I always like to be able to see the image a little bit smaller so I can see the whole image when I'm doing a large area like the sky. But again, we want our brush on white, around about 20%. We've over pumped that saturation, so we want to brush it in slightly. So we just want to increase the color in the sky. It looks a bit flatter than it did on the morning, so we want to bring that back. So if we have a look at that, on and off, it's only very slight, okay? So I'm going to put my brush up to 50%, get that effect a little bit quicker. And let's have a look. So there you go, there's the saturation we've introduced, brings in a little bit of color, okay? Again with the curves, same thing, we may just want to affect the sand a little bit. And that curves in, adds a bit of contrast and a little bit of color to the sand. There we go. So again, there's lots we can do with this image, but that just gives you an idea of how we can make adjustments in a non-destructive manner. Then we can make those adjustments selective by creating masks. And I find the easiest way to create these masks in a really, I suppose, natural way is to put the mask black, make the mask black, and then lightly paint in where you want the adjustments to show.